There's a military truism that amateurs study tactics while professionals study logistics. For the Allied war machine, the ability to fight relied entirely on moving millions of tons of overseas supplies across the Atlantic. Germany recognized this dependence. Their naval strategy focused on a concept called the Tonnage War. They didn't need to defeat Allied warships. They simply needed to sink cargo ships faster than the shipyards could replace them. This chart illustrates the brutal math. In 1940, for every 2,000 tons built, Axis submarines sank 9,000 tons. The following year, construction doubled to 4,000 tons, but the sinking rate held steady at 9,000. The deficit was fatal. The Allies had almost no spare capacity to catch up. British shipyards were already packed to their limits constructing more ships, and over in the United States, more than 90% of the merchant fleet was over 20 years old. Continuing at this rate mathematically guaranteed a failure of the Allied supply chain. Surviving required treating shipyards like factories and completely abandoning the traditional methods of naval construction. The solution started with an emergency cargo design created by a British shipyard. In late 1940, it was brought to America and modified specifically for rapid, high-volume production. The result was the standard EC2 SC1 blueprint. It was a 441-foot-long cargo hauler powered by a basic, highly reliable triple-expansion steam engine. To build them, the U.S. Maritime Commission ordered the construction of 18 entirely new shipyards and trained a massive workforce of civilians who had never assembled a vessel before. These yards ignored the artisan method of building a ship piece by piece from the keel up. Instead, they relied on modular construction, prefabricating massive sections of the ship off-site and using heavy cranes to drop them into place. They also stripped away the millions of steel rivets normally used to hold a hull together. By switching to all-welded construction, they knocked thousands of hours of intense physical labor off the clock. The process accelerated to absurd speeds. At the Permanente Metals Yard, the SS Robert E. Peary was launched exactly 4 days, 15 hours, and 29 minutes after its keel was laid. In less than 2 years, the meticulous craft of shipwrighting had been replaced by a brutal, high-speed floating assembly line. That extreme speed came with structural penalties. Early on, engineers lacked a deep understanding of how welding affected the strength of the steel plates, leading to severe fractures around the square corners of the cargo hatches. The ships were also stiff. In rough seas, they experienced a rapid, violent rolling motion that made the crew miserable and threatened to shift solid ballast, putting the vessel at grave risk of capsizing. They also had to survive the transit. Designers bolted 4-inch stern cannons, 20mm anti-aircraft guns, and heavy machine guns directly to the decks so the crews could fire back at surface attacks. But U-boats quickly adjusted their tactics, actively hunting high-value oil tankers to choke the Allied fuel supply. American shipbuilders countered by creating the Liberty tanker variant. They concealed the internal piping and installed dummy deck equipment to disguise vital fuel carriers as low-value standard cargo ships. Beyond carrying oil, they hauled boxed aircraft, functioned as hospital ships, and transported troops. The greatest defense of the Liberty ship was its strict utility, the ability to be adapted, modified, and hidden in plain sight. This line graph maps the sheer industrial output of the project. By the peak building period of 1943, the United States completed over 100 new vessels every single month. By the time the program concluded, 2,710 Liberty ships had entered service. The sheer volume of steel hitting the water forces a re-evaluation of the grim mathematical equation from 1940. This chart projects the timeline without the Liberty program. In 1942, losses would have outpaced 1941, starving the Allied front. But looking at actual historical data, the massive influx of Liberty ships permanently intersected the sinking ratio, making the U-boat strategy a mathematical failure. The Allies secured their supply lines by outproducing the Axis torpedoes, proving that modern global conflicts are decided by the relentless output of the industrial assembly line.